So shall we start? There we go. So hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. Michael, we're still seeing you on the picture, or is it just me? Sorry for asking it that way. Anyway, guys, thank you very much everyone for joining the webinar we're having today. It's all about not letting fraud hinder our marketing efforts on selling digital goods. The topic, I think, has been discussed many times, and we have a great panel of experts on the topic today that can share their views and ideas on that. The primary issue we're discussing today is a lot of the merchants today, even to this day in 2021, are intimidated by selling digital goods because of the relatively high fraud pressure that these are exposed to. And the primary objective of this webinar is to discuss different ways that we have in order to be able to do that safely and understand what go-to-market approaches we need to use. We'll start with a short introduction that each of the panelists will take through, and then we'll go through a few questions, 3 or 4 questions as time permits, that each of the panelists is going to answer, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Ronald, why won't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Hey guys, my name is Ronald. I have been in the payment/fraud industry for over 10 years. I have been working on the merchant side, like booking.com, where I was in charge for these topics. I've been working on the provider side. And now, since 5 years, I'm a full-time consultant helping merchants around the world, payment providers, fraud solution providers, banks, to minimize fraud. I'm also the co-founder of About Fraud, which is like a global fraud prevention fighter community. We have over 10,000 LinkedIn followers and growing. And I'm really happy to be part of this panel today.
Thank you very much, Ronald, for joining us. Danny, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Danny Silvers. I'm an independent game designer from Boston, Massachusetts. I run a small studio called Lantana Games. We've been around for about 12 years. In a previous life, I was a co-founder of the Boston Festival of Indie Games at MIT. I have a lot of experience dealing with some of the, I guess you could call it, shadier sides of the game industry and game distribution, and what happens on that side, and the scams that developers have to go through and navigate every single day. So I'm very happy to share my expertise with this panel and this audience.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it. Micha?
Hi, everyone. I'm Micha Berkuz. I'm the founder and CEO of Gifted. We are an employee recognition and gifting company, formerly founded by me in Israel, which is kind of the largest gifting brand, revenues of over $100 million a year. And we've been dealing with a lot of fraud issues. So as a result of that, we accumulated some experience in dealing and integrating the right products in order to deal with these challenges. So I'm happy to share a little bit of our experience.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Thank you all for being on the panel. I think that this is a hot topic for everyone that has joined us. So let's just dive in. I think the first question I'd like to share with you guys is, we know that both for gaming and for gifting, there's the content owners, let's call it this way. For game developers, these would be those that develop downloadable content. For gifting, that would be the retailers themselves. We all know that there's a lot of fraud around these. And we see both game developers and retailers that turn to third-party platforms to sell their own goods because of that fear of fraud, or because of that intimidation. Can you share a little bit of your experience on on how this is done, and is this done successfully, etc.? Ronald, why won't you start?
I think I will give this to Danny first, who is really the true expert on the gaming side, and then I will jump in and adding my part.
Sure. Honestly, in my experience, it's been very positive. I mean, yeah, you will give up a percentage of your sales for using these platforms to distribute your games, but at the same time, you get a lot of peace of mind for doing so. You know, in certain circumstances, like for instance, if you've made a game for mobile or for console, yeah, you have to distribute on those platforms, and you have to distribute through their stores and their distribution partners like GameStop or whatever. But for PC, especially, which is my area, you know, we have Steam, we have the Epic Games Store, we have GOG, we have smaller stores like itch.io. And it's nice to work with these partners because they protect the developers from any credit card chargebacks or any other issues that may happen with key distribution. And you know, sometimes we'll like bundle our games together, so we'll generate, you know, hundreds of Steam keys and we'll put those up in a bundle. And unfortunately, sometimes those bundles will get bought with stolen credit cards. And so then you're out hundreds of keys and you have to take care of that in some way. But then at the same time, some of those customers could still be legitimate and you can't really tell one from the other. So we have, you know, a lot on our plate to deal with to begin with. And it's nice to just, you know, at any time we can delegate really heavy responsibilities to somebody else, I think that takes a load off our mind.
And maybe
you want me to jump back to you, Ronald, or you want to go for Micha first?
I'm jumping on this. I just want to add one perspective which fits perfectly to Danny's statement. I think often you have to really look about what is your core competence. And if you are a gift card platform or this kind of reseller, payment is really one of the key elements of your value chain. And if you're selling gift cards as a really high risk item, which is easily to resell, fraud is a critical component. And this kind of companies, they have to be really focused and really professional on this topic to really getting also profit out of this. And that's why also I have seen plenty of companies exactly doing this kind of step, really going to third parties instead of managing this in-house and learning from scratch and learning all the pitfalls from scratch. So payment is really a topic which a lot of companies underestimate. I think it becomes more and more important, but especially in the online gift card space, which we are talking right now, that's a key element of doing any kind of business. And as we're discussing later, if you want to do business in the space, you have to eat risk. But it's always a question how you're managing the risk. But I think that's a topic later, where we're jumping into more details, how to manage risk correctly in the gift card space.
Yeah, definitely. And then Micha can chime in a little bit for this part as well, I think.
Yeah, I think there are two things. First of all, we made the crucial mistake of trying to develop a solution on our own, realizing we don't have the expertise, and usually the people on the other side are very, very diligent about getting through. So whenever it was kind of a fraud protection whack-a-mole where we kind of moved around trying to block one thing and then realizing that we missed something on the other end. The second thing that I think is probably the most important thing is people don't see, I'm putting the solution aside for a second, people don't see the overhead that comes after a fraudulent transaction is happening. Once a transaction is happening, there are a few things that are happening. First of all, you get a dispute with your credit card provider. If you go above a certain threshold when it comes to fraud, the credit card processor will close your account if you go above a certain percentage of declined transactions. People don't take that under consideration, and they will not send you a notification. You'll wake up in the morning and you'll find out that your credit card processing provider is down. The second thing, every dispute like that has to have some sort of a handling process internally, where you have to file for evidence. For the most part, there's not a lot that you can do if it is a real fraudulent transaction. So for us, it was literally a matter of either we're hiring more people or taking a company to deal with these chargebacks, these fraudulent transactions, or implementing a solution that will kind of, negate that and provide us with the protection that we need. So I think if you're looking at a fraud protection solution and the cost of it, you have to look at the cost that goes beyond the actual transaction or the disputed charge. One more thing, companies will charge beyond the actual transaction that was disputed. You will pay an extra $10 to $15 fee on every disputed transaction. That was the cost that was killing us, not the actual, because we could cancel some gifts or cancel those gift cards. The charges, if you get, you find yourself thousands of dollars a month in fees, not just the actual value of the gift card. So that was kind of the experience that we had on our end.
I'm going to chime in there if I can. It is very similar in the game industry. And what nobody on this side realizes is that we basically need funding just for B2B transactions like that, as opposed to obviously we need funding for paying our staff and paying the rent and certification of our titles. But with the amount of fraud that goes on, if you want to distribute your titles yourself, you're looking at needing money in the bank just to be able to deal with the bank. Simple as that.
It's I think that this is an experience shared by all. I think anyone that has tried starting to sell digital goods, primarily gift cards and games, has experienced the same kind of pains at birth. So thank you guys for sharing that. I want to go and take another step forward on the go-to-market strategies. One of the key aspects is when you want to go to new markets, new segments. What happens then is your ability to fight fraud becomes even more limited because it's a market you don't know. And obviously, again, this is something you guys have all seen, and I appreciate it. If you can take a turn at stabbing at that. Micha, you want to go first with that?
Okay, so for us, I'll take a different angle on this. Not the less the go-to-market strategy, more on the kind of building the relationship and credibility with potential partners. So for us, it was. If we are looking at new markets, we had a partnership that we launched with Porsche to kind of facilitate their gifting activities for their Porsche Drive program. And one of the things that we saw is that because they were selling high denomination gift cards, it was pretty much getting raising every flag that you can imagine, because every transaction was between $300 and $1,200. And one of the things that we are experiencing is you have to build some sort of rapport or some sort of credibility with your client. So if you start off a program and immediately for the first 3, 4, 5 transactions, the clients are getting blocked because you have a rule that says every transaction above $400 is going to get audited by our system, they will get that negative feedback from their clients. And all of a sudden that relationship that was supposed to go really smoothly and launch a great program, all of a sudden becomes this thing where we had to kind of manually monitor every single transaction and take the risk on us for that period of time. And then a fraud protection solution obviously came in and kind of negated and removed that kind of overhead from us. But I think it going to new markets, it also not just the fraud protection solution is the issue, but it is building the relationship and credibility with your potential clients and with your partners. So that was kind of our experience in terms of why this was a critical part of engaging with those new brands and large brands and having, and by the way, we're not talking about thousands of transactions. We're talking about 5, 6 first transactions, 3 of them gets blocked. And all of a sudden you get a phone call from that partner saying, hey, what's going on? We just launched this and we're having a different conversation than how we can move forward and expand this and put more money into marketing. So that was kind of our experience, and we ended up resolving that, and it turned out to be a great program. But that was kind of our experience from going live with that type of brand.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's that's invaluable for the audience to realize the different aspects of the issues that we all are exposed to. Any you want to take a stab?
I think another area that's worth thinking about, no matter what business you're going into when you're distributing digitally in different markets is that every single market has other legal payment processors. For instance, PayPal can only be used in some countries, and then other countries have other ones that if you intend to distribute in those territories, you would need to sign up for and develop a good relationship with them on top of everything, everyone else. So there's absolutely that to keep in mind. Then there's like digital currency and cryptocurrency kinds of transactions that you might look into as well. And so you're looking at needing to establish various wallets, say for different cryptos, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Doge or whatever you want to accept. So that is just a lot to juggle. And then the moment something goes wrong there, especially early on, you're looking at having your account shut down and never being able to distribute in those markets again. So that startup phase in a new market is easily the riskiest step. If you can get through those first 2 or 3 months and develop a good relationship with those payment processors, then you're in much better shape. But unfortunately, those also tend to be high risk markets at the same time that don't carry those like worldwide processors. So it's just one of those things you got to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely seen that before. Ronald, do you wanna take?
So, I mean, I also take the angle from, let's say, going into new market has a lot of flavor. And as Danny mentioned, new payment methods is one aspect, especially if you're an American brand going internationally, going north, south, east, or west. Every market will have like different payment methods. If you go down to Latin America and Brazil, they have, for example, boletos, which might not really work for gift cards sometimes. They might have tax regulations. So you might ending up with chargebacks because the customer needs to pay additional fees for cross-border transactions or for any kind of additional taxes. So we're not really a fraud, it's more like a miscommunication. And this is just one example of many around the world, which you need to keep in mind. And that goes back to my initial point. A lot of companies don't have this knowledge in-house. And that's often like the pitfalls which they're facing. If you're looking from a fraud angle, in the US, a lot of companies using address verification checks, so AVS, it's quite typical, but this only exists like in the US, Canada, and the UK. The rest of the world is not really supporting this. But if you go to other markets, they have really secure and other elements which are important to verify transactions. But often, if you're looking at the gift card space, you don't get a shipping address, you don't get all these details. So often you're really facing just with an email address. And then you really have to see, okay, how can I really tackle this in a smart way and entering a new market? And often what I have seen, as also Danny mentioned, and also Mika, is a lot of companies have to do like a step-by-step approach, not just opening the door completely, but really monitoring this closely to understand what is my appetite for fraud. I think it's always important for companies to have a certain budget for fraud, because fraud is happening always. But I have not seen many companies doing this. That's really budgeting fraud expenses. And then really understanding, okay, if I'm now going to, again, Latin America or some other markets which are more risky than others, then I need to plan with this in my kind of business case or in my budget plan rolling out into new markets.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this the launching new markets is always a pain, but I think specifically in our industry, it's becoming an issue where there are too many facets you need to manage. I want to take another angle on the topic we're discussing and echo some of what you've mentioned earlier, Micha, when going into a new relationship or a new market or a new segment, you find yourself declining transactions. Sometimes it's because the size of the transaction, sometimes it's because it's a new payment method, sometimes it's just because you don't know the market well enough. And then when you look at decline rates, what you would see is that you decline, let's say you decline 10 or 15% of the population, which is normal, I think, in our industry, and we're striving to get that significantly higher for everyone. When you look at the numbers for new shoppers, you see that these numbers are significantly higher. And that's where the real cost comes for the marketing campaigns. Can you guys share a little bit about that aspect of the problem? Who wants to dive in first?
I can start.
Yeah.
I think that's also just one statement on this, the benefit of using a third party. Even as a big merchant, you see Ronald the first time, so you might be conscious about what's going on. But if you're using a third party, it could be by the payment provider already supported, but also by companies like nSure and others, who already have seen many transactions, and they might have seen already Ronald 10 times before. And that's also a kind of trend in the industry right now, that we don't only talk about who's bad, but even more talking about who's good. Having this kind of trusted relationship, even to a customer which you don't know, but your partner maybe knows already the customer. I think that's a big shift right now to really pick the good guys and providing a good experience, lowering friction. And for transactions where you don't know, you might adding more friction with a kind of second step or a verification process or others. I think that's an important point to really having this kind of balance, but it also requires some experience and really some planning behind of doing this kind of workflow management or routing in the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
What I can from our experience, I think the most important thing is, you have one chance to make a first impression. And for us, like, to have a single transaction decline could mean probably 5 or 10 phone calls to our customer support line, 2 tickets on our support, a client that doesn't understand what happened, because we know the fraud industry and we know exactly what's going on in the background, and they have no idea what's going on. For them, they should have a seamless experience. So I think that dissonance of someone getting rejected or blocked by a system on their first transaction and not really understanding what happened, because for them, they just came in to buy a gift card or to do a transaction on our website. And the dissonance between what we see as like, we're mitigating risk right now and preventing our business from losing money, and the client getting to that point of like, I just tried to make a simple transaction, it's a gap that's very hard to bridge. Like, it's really hard to explain. We try to do our best when we say like, hey, we're taking your security and our security very seriously. And our whole verbiage around that on our system is trying to make that kind of a soft interaction, but it's not. Eventually, it is a hard stop on a transaction that you want to finish and move on to the next step. And I think reducing that and creating that great first impression, I think, is a key to having that returning customer that is vetted and validated, and then the second transaction is going to be a lot easier for us to handle. So a lot of times, like Ronald, you mentioned this kind of a whitelisting process that goes through, not just blacklisting. So I think if we can get through that as quickly as possible using a solution, that was a huge pain point for us, because that bad first impression of a client that all they wanted to do is just go and buy a gift card, and add on top of that the timing is like Friday night in the evening, it's Father's Day, you have to get this thing done. There's so many, like, you don't see the full picture of what the client is experiencing. So I think that was a huge part of trying to understand how stressful the situation is for the person buying the gift, not just for you as a company dealing with fraud. So I think if we put ourselves in the eyes of our clients, that's a big thing that we're trying to do on our end, and try to reduce that friction in order to get that returning client. And by the way, 60% of our transactions are returning clients for the most part. So that customer acquisition experience is critical for the success of our business.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also, there's always the customers who mean well and are looking for the best deal, but may end up buying a good at a less than reputable site for your product because the price is lower. So they think that they're giving you money They just happen to think that maybe your game or gift card or music or movie or book or anything happens to be on sale at this one particular site. And so, normally say it's like a $20 product. They say, oh, cool, I can get it for $5 here. I'll just get it here instead. In the game industry a few years ago, I think it was Ubisoft with some Assassin's Creed game, had to cancel thousands of keys that had been illegally distributed on a gray market site or something like that. And there were lots of legitimate customers in there, and there were a lot of angry people about, who like thought that they were just buying a game. And I think in the end, Ubi had to essentially bite the bullet and just give them the game because they were so angry about that. So there's a marketing problem where, we as business owners have to tell our customers, these are the legitimate places you can buy our games. If you see it for sale, anywhere else, we're not getting any money for that. And so, you might be saving money getting it there, but you're not supporting us. Yeah.
I have one comment to add. Mika mentioned a topic whitelisting. I think historically a lot of companies use whitelisting. I think again here like a balancing act, because fraudsters use this kind of approach because the new companies might have basic rules who say, okay, if someone did 3 transactions successfully, then I'm whitelisted and I'm skipping all the rules. I think nowadays, all the systems really skip this kind of issue, but historically a lot of companies did this, a lot of tools did this, and then the fraudsters did 3 good transactions, and then the door was open doing a lot of fraud. I think nowadays companies are more aware about this, but just for the audience, one point, whitelisting is not just like a golden solution, it's just like one element out of many to really build something good.
Thank you, Ron, for that. So I got one question here on direct messaging from the audience. I got a couple of them actually, but I don't think we have time for more than one. So let's go with this one. The question is, if you want to achieve the best marketing performance when selling digital goods, what should you monitor from a fraud perspective? So
I also can jump first here. I have done this now a few times with some of my customers, and an important point which is often forgotten. I think a big part of the traffic comes via affiliate partners for many gaming, gift cards, and other digital businesses. But often companies don't use this affiliate ID and sending this to the fraud solution provider. That's often something which people don't consider. But I use it as a kind of a standard default data point to send always to any kind of fraud solution. Because what we have seen in the past is we enabled the fraud manager having a conversation with the marketing team, because the fraud manager actually realized we have a few partners which sending us only bad transactions or majority of bad transactions. And then the marketing manager was actually empowered, enabled, and having a conversation with the marketing team or with the marketing partner at the end to shift traffic or reallocating the budget. I think that's one easy and really kicking element to add to your fraud solution, which makes a difference globally.
Thank you. Just final comments, Micha or Danny, because we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to selling anything, I think the focus, should always just be on selling the product. Be bullish, get in there. Don't worry about, oh no, someone's gonna steal my thing. Just get out there, assume the best in people, assume that, if you're selling a game, they're gonna go buy it on Steam instead of in the gray market. If you're selling gift cards, they're gonna, buy it at your website or at Kohl's or, somewhere legitimate. And, if they're buying music, they're gonna get it on iTunes or they're gonna listen on Spotify. Most people are not going to go out of their way to rip you off. Having somebody that can back you up to, protect you in case bad things do happen, that's good. But budget wise, be prepared. But mentally, if you can put it aside, that's going to save you a lot of stress.
Yeah.
My last 2 cents on this, I think it's probably different when you sell, different types of digital goods. For us, the gift card industry is a very low margin business. So, if remove the credit card processing fees, remove the fraud protection, remove everything, you're left with a fraction of a point on every transaction. So obviously fraud is a huge, if you lose $100, you have to sell $10,000 worth of goods in order to cover that. So that's a very bad equation for us. But I think if you're looking at this, sometimes people want to be, go live quick and dirty, get the best, the quickest service you can integrate. Take time after you kind of go live and look into other solutions. Try to find a credit card processor that works on an interchange plus model or something like that. Don't go for the 3% plus whatever overpricing that you get on these like easy to integrate platforms. That's a good way to kind of cut another half a point there, half a point here. For us, it's very good on the go-to-market strategy and move quickly, but work on getting your other services the best pricing that you can get from for your system. So that's our 2 cents.
So I'd like to wrap it up. We're running a little bit over time here. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Ronald, Micha, and Danny. Thank you for all that have attended. The recording of the webinar is going to be available on the nSure.ai website in the next coming days. And that's it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.